Hello and welcome back to Real French Connections. Today we're back in Bordeaux and we're coming to see Jenifer and Mike, who've been here a year now, but the exciting thing is their apartment has just been finished. The renovations are done and they've moved in. So we're going to have a chat to them about how the first year in France has been, and also really exciting, we're going to have a look around the Cité du Vin, which is very famous in Bordeaux, and I think we're going to meet a lot of exciting wines too. You've been here exactly a year. I'd love to know, because the apartment is so perfect, what it was like when you first walked in and how you feel about the work that's been done.
The biggest transformation for me has been the walls, right? I mean, I thought they were okay before, but, they found wallpaper underneath painting, the paint, which we didn't realize. So, there was so much work to done. And now just to see how the walls are just, immaculate, right? Versus what I thought was okay. And now I see what it should look like. So for me, that was probably the single biggest transformation.
And what about you, Jenifer?
The floors, they just took these original floors that have been here for hundreds of years and really brought them back to their natural state, their natural color. Just did a beautiful job. They did some slight reparations where we had some insect damage. And so I love the floors. And
the insect damage, termites?
I think so. We have to assume there was just places where the wood was just crumbling.
Did they have to take up the floorboards?
It was fascinating. The damage could have been done 75 years ago. And so when they were sanding, the machine took up the wood that was being sanded off, and it was used with a filler to refill the wood with the wood that was being sanded up. So they were able to use that and fill the spots and
sustainable.
And they treated it before as well, just to make sure that there was nothing lurking underneath.
And when we're talking about the people because all of these things sound very skilled, turning walls that you think are okay into walls that are immaculate and reflect the light. Who are these people? Where did they come from? How did you find them?
Okay, well, again, with French Connections, which we were used mostly, originally the idea was, well, help us with the paperwork, right? We want to make sure that we enter properly, we get the right visas, we get the appointments that are necessary, etc. And so Jenifer discovered them while she was doing her research on, well, would we ever move, and what would it take? So she found French Connections at that time. And then as we started to talk about what the next thing after you buy the apartment, what are you going to do? Richard introduced the concept of, well, if you want, you can meet Tony and his team and they can walk you through their thoughts. And so we met a few tradesmen, local.
Yeah.
But the advantage of working with Tony was plumbers, electricians, painters, other artisans as needed, kind of one stop, as opposed to trying to be a coordinator, especially overseas, not speaking the language well. So it really became, I'll say, a relatively straightforward decision because, the gentleman who came to look at the floors was clearly an expert in Bordeaux flooring, but, he was ambiguous on his timing and things along those lines. And then you talk to the plumber, there was a bit of the same, okay.
Right. So Tony actually, and his team, they're artisans in themselves, each of them. And so his team came in, and when they discovered a problem, they called us or they WhatsApped us and, what would you like to do? And they were on it very quickly.
That is an advantage, isn't it? Having one team of many skills. I hadn't actually thought of it like that before, but rather than coordinating individuals, because the timing is always difficult, let alone the language, it's true. How then did it feel? You were not in France then at that time. You weren't here. How did you manage with communication? How many times did you have to come over during how long did it take, I suppose?
Well, when we purchased the apartment, we stayed here as newlyweds with no furniture.
We've actually stayed here.
So we bought the minimal things. We learned to love IKEA.
We bought a bed and a mattress, and we bought a desk and a couple chairs.
That's so romantic, though. Did you picnic?
We worked and we ate and we
Our desk was our dining table.
I love it. Well, if you start like that, that's just it can only get sort of more comfortable as you go along.
So we stayed here, and the advantage of that for us was we really got to talk through, because everything's out from the prior owner, right? So you really can start to, all right, what are we going to... Yeah, and so you could start to imagine what you would like to do. And that's when, I think after a few weeks, Tony
actually came down and walked the entire property with us and talked about what was possible and what we could do, especially with the bathroom renovation, and that we changed a bit with the water closet in the bathroom, what we needed to do with the floors to make the reparations, and then, obviously the beautiful walls.
Did he arrive with ideas? Did you already have ideas of kitchen? The kitchen, for example, is beautiful. Had you already in mind what you wanted?
It was a combination with Tony. The kitchen is actually the original. We decided to leave that for the time being. We have Tony's number just in case. And but we really talked about what we needed and wanted with regards to the renovation back there. And what he thought we could do with the plumbing and moving some things around. So it was
And then at what point there? So you've bought it. You are in, and then you leave when the work starts. Is that how it worked?
For us, that's how we ended up doing it. Yes.
Yeah. We left our keys. And they were here all summer.
Extraordinary. And so I imagine they would send updates regularly.
Yeah, we had a couple calls a week, and they would walk around. Sometimes they would just, at the end of each day, they would take a small video and send it. Okay, this is what we accomplished today, type of thing.
And when was your first trip back to see the work that had been done? How long, how many months afterwards, and what did that feel like?
So we came back in September, and they were still working on a few things. So, we got to know the guys really well. Had coffee with them. They were still kind of working on some things in the bathroom because it turned out to be a kind of a real reconfiguration back there. Walls came down, and so yeah.
How have you found settling in?
Good. I mean, Bordeaux's a wonderful city. I mean, it has a very relaxed vibe about it, right? And the people in the neighborhood and the stores, really have that attitude, right? It's not a very formal culture. They tolerate our limited French very well. I think Jenifer's made a lot more progress over the months than I have. It's been very slow to come back for me. But I think, again, it's we haven't met, I'll say, friends yet, but we've met people.
Yeah, and settling in has been great. The Bordeaux has this huge Brocante twice a year, which is an antiques fair. With 200 antique dealers who come. So, for example, this table we just wandered over last spring, and we found this and the mirror, which is about 200 years old. Was created here by an organization that made mirrors in Bordeaux, and the back has a certificate of Bordeaux authenticity. I mean, it's old, it's peeled off and everything, but so we found that at the Brocante. And so every time they show up, we head over and look to see what we can find.
And where did the other furniture come from then? Where did you find all the other furniture that you have?
So we had the opportunity when our children were very young to live in Lyon, France for 6 years.
For 6 years?
Yeah. So
were the kids of school age?
yeah. So our daughter was 5 and our son was 1.
Right.
Now they're 33 and 28. And so we lived there for 6 years, and it's kind of the inception story of us coming back to France.
Yes.
We fell in love with the country, the culture, the food, the wine.
Oh, in Lyon.
Yeah, in Lyon, and so it was always a dream of ours. But we purchased furniture in Lyon, and so that went to the States, and so some of it has actually repatriated and come back to France this September to live in France again.
Fantastic. That's such a good story. I love that you never lost the connection or the wanting to come back. What about the kids? So they would have gone to the local school, to the French school?
Yeah, so our son went to French maternelle.
Yeah.
Started, 18 months he was there, and a little Montessori. Rebecca was 5, so she actually went to it was a French school that
Catered in the international students.
yeah, but it catered mostly to French to teach English.
Yes.
So when Becca started there, she was one of 5 international students.
Wow.
And when she left 6 years later, I think there were students from, there were 70 students from like 15 different countries that had come to the school.
What are their memories of France? What's their feeling about France? Do they have an affinity? Because I noticed with, my children went to the local village school and then later went to the French school in Sydney, in Australia, which, like your school, grew exponentially, in fact. But the friends who came over while my children were at the village school in France and joined the school, because that was imminently possible, any child was welcome. Even if they only stayed for 1 term, I'm talking about people who would come over from England, for example. The kids would go in there not speaking a word of French, stay for a term, and yet that stayed with them all their lives. They would get back to England and be confident in French. The same when we were in Australia, we hosted friends from the village, from our village in France, over in Australia. So although the school was French, life outside wasn't, and they had that affinity with speaking English. I just think it's wonderful for children, isn't it?
Well, it's fascinating for our little story, right? So our son, we often say his first language actually turned out to be French, right? And because he would go to a school and play with the kids and the like, and so his mother tongue was French. But we moved back when he was so young that he's completely lost it. Our daughter retained it. It was at the perfect age. At age 6 to 12, she was here, and so to this day, she speaks impeccable French.
And where are they now?
Becca has retained many good friends from Lyon. So she comes back annually to see friends, or they come to New York City. Rebecca lives in Brooklyn. She works in New York. She's in fashion. She's a lingerie designer.
Is she?
And our son is a high school history teacher in New Jersey. So he's really has an affinity for history, world history mostly.
Yeah.
Ancient history.
What do they think then of you? They must be pleased of you moving here.
Oh, absolutely. Rebecca arrives next week. She's already chosen her room in the apartment. Yeah, and
we're still holding out hope our son at the end of school term.
What made you choose Bordeaux? Did you know Bordeaux before you decided to move here?
Yeah. Again, part of just the way life works. I mean, we're going to be celebrating our 30th anniversary, right? And we still have some friends, very Lyon-centric. And so we wanted to come back and do something special for our 30th wedding anniversary, but we wanted to go someplace we had never been. And Bordeaux actually was one of the corners we never visited, right? So we said we're going to go to Bordeaux, and we spent a week. We rented an Airbnb with 3 other couples. Spent a wonderful week, and that was our introduction. And then I'll let my wife take the hand off because, again, the way the world works.
Right. Yeah. So we fell in love with Bordeaux, and I like to call it like the little Paris, right? Yeah. The architecture is just, it's the same, but it's just on a livable scale. During the pandemic, I took a job with a nonprofit in New York City called the American Friends of the Cité du Vin, which is a wine cultural center and museum here in Bordeaux. I was hired to be a fundraiser for the Cité du Vin in the United States. So
increasingly appreciated what this city had to offer, and for I'll say us, mostly me, right? I'm not a big city person. For me, it was a matter of it's the perfect size, right? Bordeaux was, has everything. It has enough of a population where it has anything you could want, but it's not so big as to be overwhelming or intimidating, at least for my liking. So, yeah, I can easily see this being the place, to settle in.
The weather is beautiful, and his one of his coworkers, who he's friends with from when he worked in Lyon, actually lives in Arcachon. Oh, so and Arcachon is kind of a draw for us. We can go over to the beach and to Cap Ferret for oysters and wine in the sun and sit on the beach. And so we see his friend and his wife, a couple times a year. And it's just, it has everything. It has the culture that you would want. It has the food and the wine as well. Yes. That we love.
And the people who have run the city really have made it very walkable.
Oh, so walkable. So few cars.
There's pedestrian areas that are quite nice. The tram system is fantastic. You can get to just about every corner of the city using the tram if you don't feel like walking. So we have no car, right? Nor do we ever want to have a car here. So for us, right, it really, again, the way they've managed the city is very nice.
Yeah, and we can hop the tram here and in 15 minutes be at the Bordeaux train station, and then hop a train to Spain or to Paris, or when we see our friends in Lyon, we just take a train over to see them. And
so well connected, isn't it? It really is. I also think that the walkability of it, the fact, the beauty, the sheer beauty of the architecture, and the feeling of the buzz.
Well, it's a university town, right? Yes, so there's young people everywhere, and it keeps it lively and happy and, just exciting. There's always something happening.
Yeah, and Jenifer, so you now are across the river from the Cité du Vin.
La Cité du Vin's focus is on the wines of the world, not just for...
Oh, I didn't know that. Yes. Right, I had assumed it was actually wines of this region.
They have 50 partners that work with them from regions from Chile and the Ukraine and the United States and Argentina, wines from all over the world. Yeah.
So do representatives come from those countries then? Isn't that lovely that there's such a working relationship between winemakers, a family, a big, united family, even though I guess it's quite competitive.
Yes, yeah.
But still that they share knowledge, I suppose, and they share problems.
They do. Yeah, and they work with one another in their regions. And up in Margaux right now, they're working on coming together all of the properties to fund bike routes. and to help rebuild the bee population. So they're planting flowers all around the region. And
So is there a lot of forward thinking, a lot of sustainability aspect to this?
everything and anything to do with wine production or marketing or sales or just imbibing in wine is offered at La Cité du Vin, and it's truly educational.
I bet it is. Do you each have a preferred wine? Well, let's start with the world, and then let's hone it down to local wines. What would be your wine of choice?
Oh, well, we cut our teeth on Rhone wines, right? So again, so there's probably always be a little bit of a special place in my heart and on my palate for Rhone wines. So
Like a Côte-Routine or a Châteauneuf-du-Pape, you know.
yeah, exactly. So again, if I was thinking of a special event for me, I would probably head in that direction. Again, Jenifer's got a much more educated palate than I do. So,
Oh, I just love all wine. So, and it's really about the food and not necessarily the pairing, but just making sure that it's enjoyable. And you know, so you know, I love champagne and I love a Bordeaux blend. You know, we both agree that I think our preference is kind of an old school wine.
Would that be a richer?
Just a European wine in the sense, an old world wine, I guess is what I was looking for. We tend to gravitate towards those. Then not that I don't enjoy a good California wine or something from Oregon, you know, when we're home. But
Wow. And apart from that then, so the market, I know you love, don't you? The Sunday morning market. Do you go every Sunday?
I do. I mean, I'm more the food person out of the two of us, as my size will probably indicate. But so yeah, so that to me is always one of the things I look forward to, because obviously everything changes with the season. You see things, right? There's fruits and vegetables that I'm sure exist in the United States, but they're not in my local supermarket, so I've never seen them. So,
And are you an experimental chef? Oh, you are.
yeah, I like to test the, you know, what do you know, I get the, what are you going to do with that? You know, reaction sometimes when I come home. So,
What's your most recent discovery?
the sea trout is just extraordinary here, right? And it's, again, you can get it in the States, but it's here, it's kind of straight from the water. And like, oh God, I can't even think of the name, that orange fruit that, again, that, yes, thank you. I'd never heard of it, saw it, and didn't know what was ripe. And so I had to talk to the lady and like, okay, what do I look for? What do I...
How do you cook it? Can you cook it?
I've never known. I just ate it fresh. So, yeah. So thank you for your help. Because
No, it's such a remarkable tree when the fruit is out, because it's all the fruit and no leaves, isn't it? Which looks like a child's drawing.
so it's we saw them in Italy, right?
Spain, I think is the biggest. Spain is the...
So, but he'll go to the market and just start shouting up, yeah.
Lucky you, Jenifer.
Yes, I am.
What else have you discovered just around and about this area where you live? What do you love to do?
Well, again, they've got a lot of different types of museums. I mean, again, the Bassin is just interesting as, again, a history element of, you know, it was used to house the German submarines back in war, right? And they've turned that into a showcase now, right? They do various art displays there, right?
Just it's all concrete that was built during World War II, and they can't destroy it.
No.
And so they've turned it into an art installation of, you know, every couple months they change this, and it's just really beautiful to walk through. The Contemporary Art Museum is one block. We just love walking around to all the little squares and the place, you know, here and this one there, and discovering, you know, what's there, and what restaurant is where. We're always looking for the next best restaurant. And you can walk into a wine bar anywhere, and they always have just wonderful selections, and everyone's so lovely to just sit and help you and talk about what they're pouring.
Yeah.
And there's a very, again, just not to obsess on food, but there is really a very nice, because of where it's situated, the influence of Spain and Italy, I think, right, in this area in terms of the choices around cuisine and the approach to cooking here is clearly influenced again,
And we just took a quick train ride to San Sebastian in Spain. It was an hour and a half on the train. Hopped into an Airbnb, spent the weekend, and came back, and that was fun.
Yeah. So as Americans, although you are not the norm because you've already spent those years in Lyon, so you had lived in France, in Europe, is one of the joys the proximity to all the rest of Europe?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Jenifer's a beach girl, born and raised with being near the water. So again, I think she talked about Arcachon, but the whole coast that even between here and Arcachon is
just even being by the river, the Garonne, and walking up and down this beautiful quay. We go out every morning, mostly not together, and we do our exercise on the quay, and it's glorious.
And language-wise, you must, after 6 years in Lyon, I imagine already have a decent grasp.
Yeah. Especially in a restaurant. Especially in a restaurant.
I'll admit, I thought it would come back a lot more easily, but that almost 25-year gap, turned out to be a bit of a hill more than a gap.
It's there somewhere, though.
It's there, and it does. We everyone speaks English. Because we're in a very cosmopolitan city. Yes. But we also are not afraid, as a second time expatriate or immigrant, if I can use that word. We're not afraid to speak, and the verb tense might not be correct, or we might have a masculine feminine issue with something, but we're not afraid to speak. When we find a way around to make our point with the vocabulary that we have, whereas as a first person moving to a country where you don't quite speak the language, it's intimidating.
Yeah, I think people do make the mistake of thinking it has to be correct or it has to be grammatically correct. Whereas when you think about it, the way we speak English is a whole load of shortcuts. Yeah. Very rarely would we use a formal phrase in conversation. Right. It's all shortcuts, isn't it? So familiarity, that comes with familiarity, but people don't have to set the highest level of achievement.
I think there's an expectation, right? So I think there is one, you have to respect that the French do love their language, right? So there is a proper way to speak French, but understanding that we didn't go to French school, we didn't get it right. There is as I always say, I speak like a child with the grammar of a baby, right? So I turn the phrase in French that way, and they kind of get it, right? Yeah. Like, okay, simple words.
I would imagine that people love that, though, because it's more about the trying, isn't it? Oh, no, there's the bells from the church that we can see through the windows.
Half hour, so you only get one.
Just one. I feel shortchanged.
Just wait 29 minutes.
Okay, we'll get the whole peel. Yeah. And what would you say, going back to right at the very beginning, the help that you had with the administration, because that does require a different level of French. What would you say about that, and what would your advice be based on your experience?
Don't do it yourself. No, honestly, right? It was truly, straightforward, right? Okay. They laid out what the process would be. Here's when, French Connections, these things will take a few weeks. These will take a couple of months, you know, don't worry if you don't hear back, or, oh no, you should have heard back. Let us make a phone call, and things like that that were.
And they were great. They made all the appointments for us. Yeah. They gave us a list of the documentation that we needed. Yeah. Now, understand that this is the second time that we've gone through this administration, right? Yes. So when I was doing my research and I found French Connections, and we had that initial conversation with Richard, we just knew, after already understanding what it meant, that this was something that we wanted to invest in. It was well worth the investment. The team was professional and friendly and wonderful, and it was really a great service that helped us. Yeah.
No.
I'm really glad. It's great to talk to you about just the whole year seems to have been action-packed, and now suddenly in its rhythm.
Yeah, no, I could say this, when we returned a few weeks ago, now it feels
like home.
It feels like home, right? I mean, it was, a lot of make do, now we have a table, well, we have chairs, exactly, we have a place to sit. That literally didn't exist for the first 6 or so months,
I don't think there could be any nicer feeling than being able to say, it feels like home. Yeah. That's the goal, isn't it?
So one of the things that Chartrons is also known about is the lovely greenery. You'll see up and down the streets. They have potted plants, and you'll see everyone puts the jasmine on their buildings. And it's just really pretty and
so healthy. But the size of this trunk, wisteria.
This is wisteria, yeah.
So have the flowers just been?
Yeah. Earlier this spring.
Yes.
Purple ones.
These were white.
It must be so old to have.
Yeah. So a lot of photographers come and do magazine shoots here and all kinds of things, and so. But Chartrons is known for the greenery, and if you, and your building can appeal to the municipality for a jasmine, and they'll come and pot one at your door, a free jasmine at your door.
What an amazing thing for a municipality.
It's very nice. And here's the church that you hear from our apartment, and you can see, so isn't that gorgeous? And this here is the antique village. This whole building is just all different antique dealers. We can pop our head in and take a quick look.
Yeah. So Jenifer, what is this place? What is this? Is it always open?
Yes, it's the antiquities village, and so there are lots of different antique dealers, and they have all different epochs or centuries of anything that you want. Mid-century modern to Louis XIV is in here, and so we come in and peruse about weekly, just look around.
Sure, because it must have quite a fast turnover of things.
Yeah,
I don't know quite a few people wandering around today, and it's midday on a Wednesday.
It's always busy. There's always people in here, and they things just move. We've missed out on a few pretty cool items. You've got to grab them when you see them. So in Chartrons, this was the neighborhood where the wine was warehoused back in the 16 and 1700s before it went up to the UK when they put it on the boats. So the port was on the Garonne River out here.
Yep.
And so all of these buildings that you see back here that are original to the time were where they would warehouse a lot of the wine, and they would just roll the casks right out. So this was all, if you can imagine, it was just a huge port that went all the way around down to the other church. And so it was just boats and boats and boats and boats back in the 1700s.
Just taking wine.
Just taking wine. And it was part of the triangle trade.
Yeah.
So it was wines to sugar to slaves to wines, and it did the whole spice, the whole triangle. And so that was the trade. The boats would come in with one product and go out with another.
But the wine traders lived here, did they?
Yeah, they did. They lived on the main street. So when you walk along the river here, you'll see these big opulent, what we would call a townhouse.
Yeah.
And that's where the owners or the wine traders or the negociants or the businesses were. And you can see the big doors where the wine would be brought out.
Amazing. It's true. This street is very grand.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is the Cité du Vin, and the architecture is so beautiful. It was designed to resemble a swirling glass of wine. The color of all of the pieces, the mirrored pieces, is to reflect the color of the Garonne. So it reflects the city back to itself. You can take an architectural tour once a week of the Cité du Vin, and it's really a lovely tour to take, because it tells you how the architect, who was a woman, came up with the idea, and it was quite a unique design during the time. This is the 8th floor. The 7th floor is a gourmet restaurant called Lisette.
Okay.
And it has a huge wine list, as you would imagine. Chef is, and the pastry chef are just amazing. And so you can come here and sit and see the city at night and have dinner.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes, a tasting of the Cité du Vin.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you can do a selection every day. We show 16 different wines, between 15 and 16 different wines, mainly from Bordeaux. The majority will be from Bordeaux. Then we have some other wines from different regions across France.
Yep.
And then we have also different regions around the world. Usually people, like for example, people from France to Bordeaux, and they are more used to tasting Bordeaux wines. Yeah. They are more curious about tasting different parts of the world,
yes,
and vice versa. As for today's selection, we have something really interesting. So starting from the white, this is from the left bank of the river. In the terms of grapes, we have classical Semillon, which is the most planted white grape in Bordeaux, and Sauvignon Blanc, which is going to be the aromatic side of the blend. So that will be the first one. As for the reds, today, we always try to have two different styles of red. Yeah. Something more with the fruits. That's a reality. That's a tendency over the last, I say, 5, maybe 10 years. The consumption from all around the world is moving towards a different style of red, more into the fruit side, maybe less oak. But also something really interesting is that current generations, compared to the previous generations, we don't have the same level of patience, I will say.
Yes. Do you mean we're drinking them younger?
Yes.
Here we are. So here, that's a very nice question. So there are two possibilities in here. Either the winery, which in my opinion is the case in the United States, in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa as well. Either the winery ages the wine, so when the wine goes out to the market, it is ready to be consumed.
Okay.
Or we buy young vintages, or we go for something light, something fruit forward. And there's also this other part of the consumption that stays pretty much the same idea of classical Bordeaux, a wine that could age 30 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
It might be hard for me to buy something that I would do champion to drink.
Right.
And not be able to drink it for the next 20 years.
Right.
But I also understand that there is a magical side of it. When you get this perfect bottle and you keep it in the right conditions.
Yeah.
And you open it with a good day, that is always a nice surprise. And that is something that there's nothing we can do to accelerate that process.
Right.
It is either there or it's not.
Well,
so when you stumble upon this magical moment of opening right bottle in the right moment, we'll wait for it.
So, what of all the Bordeaux wines,
Yes?
which is the most bought, the most popular that you can measure?
Yeah, it's actually a short answer, but the answer is not very short in that sense. My answer will be red. But red from Bordeaux, defining red from Bordeaux, nowadays, it means a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, like for example, here you have the left bank, the right bank. So in the left bank, up in the north, you have the region of the Medocs and Ryans and the Steppe,
Margot, okay.
big full-bodied reds.
Yep.
Big reds. In the south, you have places like Lyon, Graves, and here, this yellow area, you have the sweet region, Sauternes, Marsac. Then you have the other side of the river, La Dordogne. On the right bank, you have the Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, Fonsac, big names over there. Up in the north, you have these new regions that are producing a little bit of everything. Tos de Bourg, Blaye, Côte de Bordeaux, just in front of the Medoc. So they have a nice weather as well. And then you have this region in between, the Entre-deux-Mers.
Why?
Why am I mentioning all of this? Excepting from the region of Sauternes, of the sweet white wines, red wine could be produced
In any of those regions.
Yeah, this year, if I'm not mistaken, they just, I don't know if it's already passed or they are in the process of passing the law, but they will be approved to have Entre-deux-Mers Rouge, red Entre-deux-Mers. Have in the Medoc, for example, they just passed at the beginning of this year, a Medoc Blanc, white Medoc.
Wow.
I know that they are working a little bit in Saint-Emilion also to have in the future a Saint-Emilion Blanc.
Okay.
But the common factor of all of those things, excepting from Sauternes, is a red wine.
Right.
But red wines will be totally different from here, that's from there.
Yeah.
So the answer will be red.
Yeah.
But red could mean a lot of things.
What is this? What is this?
So the city of Bordeaux commissioned these to be made from an artist named François Didier. It's for those that are blind, that are vision impaired, for the individuals to come, and it's in Braille, and also the shapes of all the buildings in the neighborhood.
So this is specifically for this neighborhood?
For this neighborhood. So you see the Cité du Vin is here, and over here is the Bassin, a flat, and the marine base, and all of the different buildings. And it's really beautiful. They can actually see the neighborhood.
And is this a one-off?
No, there's one in many of the neighborhoods in Bordeaux.
Really?
So down in the Place du Palais, you'll have one of that neighborhood. So as they're touring the city, they're actually able to see it and understand and know what's there.
That it is such a work of art.
And it's beautiful.
But also such a useful thing to be able to feel your way around the neighborhood and realize which of the landscapes you're near.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it.
It's beautiful.
It says an awful lot, doesn't it, about the city of Bordeaux, of the inclusivity, but also about thinking ahead and art and culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not doing things cheaply, just thinking about them and making them something unusual.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this idea.
And we know the neighborhood well enough. We know our neighbors well enough.
We feel comfortable now.